On today's episode of the No Bad Days podcast, we have the world champion gymnast and Olympian Giarnni. We will be discussing the highs and lows of success, being an Olympian, taking risks, and much more. I hope you enjoy. Okay, G, welcome to the No Bad Days podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming down and getting a trim as well.
No, listen, you cut my hair the best, so I wouldn't
Thank
want to
you.
be anywhere else. And it's, I always find time to try and arrange my haircuts around coming down here, obviously being in Manchester. So yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for having me. And the first podcast, I'm excited.
Yeah, no pressure. Like we were saying just a minute ago when I was cutting your hair, I've cut your hair now for a good few years, probably 5 years maybe, 4 or 5 years, and it's been incredible, and it's always inspirational having you in my shop. As I say to you every time you come in here, I've seen you go through your super highs of winning everything and being world champ and competing in the Olympics, and then I've had you in here with 2 casts on your arms, having to get your mum to bring you to the barbershop because you can't drive, really in a low place and stuff. So yeah, I do feel like I'm personally kind of on that journey with you, and when I see your successes, I honestly do feel so proud of you and stuff when I see you doing all these amazing things. So yeah, thank you for having me in that journey, even if it's just a small part, and like having your shirt on the wall in here and stuff. It's it's a massive honour. So thank you for being a part of No Bad Days.
No worries. I think, do you know what's really cool? It's like getting your hair cut, sitting in that chair for 40 minutes to an hour, depending on how long that haircut is, and being able to talk and having someone to talk to as well. And you know, we'll sit there and we'll just chat away, won't we? We'll sit in the chair, you'll cut my hair, and we'll just chat away. And like you say, there'll be times where I'm coming in like this, or I'm hobbling on crutches and things like that. And I think it's good knowing that you've just got a safe space where you can get your hair cut, have a conversation, and that's good. You walk out with a fresh trim, and you walk out feeling good because it's just good to have a conversation sometimes. And that's it. We talk, like we say, we talk about the highs, we talk about the lows.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about training, we talk about sometimes so many things. And sometimes that helps me anyway. So that's, you know, it's great to be able to come to a place like this, which is really cool. So
yeah, no, thank you, man. And like I said, I've seen you come in with 2 slings on your arms, you with crutches, and to see a professional athlete coming in all these kind of broken conditions, and then to see you go on to do such amazing things, it shocks me and it amazes me that you put your body through that for the art of gymnastics. What would you say in the last sort of 4 years, 5 years that you've been coming to this shop was your lowest moment in terms of injury wise?
I think my lowest moment, I've had a few. I'm just trying to think what the lowest was. Was it, you know, I actually think my lowest moment was probably after Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an ankle surgery, I had a double shoulder surgery, and I was completely like wiped out of the game. And I remember having a conversation with you back then saying I wasn't sure whether I wanted to carry on or whether I you know, wanted to keep going or whether I wanted to stop completely. And that was the hardest thing because, you know, I think going through one surgery, that's, you know, you can manage that, you can cope, you can figure out a decent plan to get yourself back, but actually managing 3, you know, surgeries within 3 months.
It's tough.
It's very tough.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've got a great team, I've got a fantastic team, physios, doctors, SSC coaches, so they take care of that plan.
Yeah.
But I think more for me mentally was like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
At that point I couldn't walk. I could just about move my arms, and some days I couldn't even lift my arm above my head. And it's, how am I going to do what I need to do?
Is this the time when you came in with the 2 boxes basically under your arms? Yeah.
Yeah.
So G basically came in with these 2 gigantic boxes under his arms to keep your arms in this position. Is that right?
It was more out. So because I had rotator cuff tears, they didn't want me in a sling like that because as a gymnast, we didn't really want it to heal there because we do need that rotation. So it was about healing it out here.
Yeah.
And obviously they know more detail
Yeah.
than what I do, but yeah, I mean it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean sleeping with my arms
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this.
It didn't look comfortable. Even getting your hair cut, it didn't look comfortable.
Yeah.
And it was that moment. Didn't you then go on to be world champ after that?
Yeah, I think for me it was a period of time where I don't feel like I'm enjoying gymnastics. I think I went to the Olympic Games, wasn't the experience I wanted. I've come back, I've had all these surgeries, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get back? And then once I got to that point where I decided, right, I can do this, I want to do this, it was more about how can I enjoy competing? I think one thing I know I certainly do, and I know there's a few others, but it's always, I can't wait till this competition's done. Can't wait till, I get back to the hotel room and I can enjoy a nice meal or something like that. But we never actually enjoy the moment, enjoy the process. And I think one thing that led to that success was I decided I'm not going to go out there and try and prove myself to anyone. I'm not going to go out there and try and prove that I'm, this good or that good, or I need these results, because it was always like, oh, I must do this, I must do that.
Yeah.
And I actually was like, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to enjoy every minute. I'm going to try and soak up the crowd, be present, be there and enjoy it. And then from that moment, I then started to have the success that then continued on to the World Championships.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear it all the time, and it sounds like a bit of a cringy phrase, but enjoying the journey and stuff, I do think is massively important. And that's another thing I was going to bring up to you, is that after you've competed, so for example, becoming the world champ, you're in this journey, you're training for, in your case, years and years and years since you was a young boy, putting your body through all this sort of absolute chaos, coming in here, beaten up, and then you do it. You're number one. You're top of the world. You can't go any higher at this point. You go back to your hotel room, I'm guessing, after that, and then what happens? Where is your head in that moment?
I was like, what have I just done? And I think for me it was even more special because of the journey that I've been on. I think the constant, surgeries upon surgeries upon surgeries. It was always like, I'm never gonna do it. And floor as well, the piece that I became world champion on, that was always my piece as a junior. As a junior moving up, I was always, one of the best on floors. I was junior European champion, I was youth Olympic champion. I was always winning on that apparatus until I had my injury. I had a knee injury. And then it was like, I just never got back. I just never got back to that level. And it was always chasing. So when I was laying there after I won that medal, I didn't take that medal off. I'm pretty sure I even slept in the medal.
Tattooed it into your skin.
I literally had it around my neck and I was like, I'm not taking this off.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And I had all the boys around me, and our team's great. They're like, gee, you done it. And I'm like, I know.
Well, I actually remember you bringing it in here as well. And you walked through the girls' shop and you had it, and that reception, even from people that don't necessarily know you, but they hear your story through even the likes of me, they're proud of you for getting to where you've been. So going on further from what I was saying about after you've just won that medal, was there any moment of thinking, what next? Or was you just living directly in that moment at that time and just being happy in the present?
It was a tough one because I was trying to live in that moment and be present, but it didn't feel real in that moment. I think it hadn't sunk in yet. I hadn't had time to process it. Everything had just happened. I'd won, and it was like kind of media, all the media attention, all this, all that. There were so many things that came with that, and I was a bit like, well, I've not even processed that I won a gold medal yet. But then the other thing was I had a parallel bars final to do the next day.
Okay.
So I was thinking, right, or was a day after, I can't remember, something like that. But But I was like, right, well, actually, I've got another final to do. You know, I need to get my head down. I need to focus because I'm not done yet. I've still got a job to do. So it's very hard because at one minute you're up here and you've just won, you've become a world champion, and you're like, you just want to go celebrate. You want to be with friends, with family. Yet you're then thinking, okay, I've got to compete again. So I need to really calm down. I really need to, you know, try and get a early night's sleep and that was the hardest thing. I couldn't even sleep, and then I've got to go compete the next day because I'm on top of the world right now. But I think at that point I don't want to say I wasn't bothered. It wasn't like I wasn't bothered, but regardless of how I slept, I was like, it doesn't matter because of what I've just done. Yeah,
it's true, and I think that's what separates people that are professional athletes like yourself. Is the fact that they can have such a big success and then think, right, I'm on to the next thing. It's that attitude, and what I've learnt from cutting your hair for such a long time is that you've got that attitude that's kind of onto the next thing, and it feels like you never want to stay still, and you're never happy. And I think even when you get everything you want and you win everything that you want, I feel like your sort of personality is the person to be like, okay, what next?
Yeah.
So that is the next question we're going to go on to. What is next for you after gymnastics? Because I understand that it's not a long career in gym. So roughly what sort of age did gymnasts retire?
I think gymnasts, I mean, you've got gymnasts that are in their mid-40s, mid-30s, you know, you can, if your body holds up, you can go on for a long period of time. But I think realistically, 28 years old, you know, by that point, you're normally being pushed out by the younger generation that are coming up. So that's really the time for male athletes to retire. So, you know, I've got a few more years left in the bag, but yeah, I mean, it all depends. And again, everyone's different because it all depends on your body. Someone like me, I've been through the absolute works, you know, I'm held together with screws and tape. You're
like the bionic man.
So I literally, like, I'm the bionic man, and you know, at some point this younger generation is going to start coming through, which is fantastic for us because we need that as a country, as a sport. We need that younger generation that comes through and pushes us lot out, because hopefully then they can go on to have great success. But I'm hoping, you know, the goal is to go to Paris. The goal is to focus on that. And
so you want to get to the Paris Olympics,
yeah, that's the goal. Paris Olympics, do everything that I need to within the next 12 months and purely focus on that. Once Paris is done, whether I do or don't make the team, you know, I'm not guaranteed again. Then we'll focus on the goals. And I've got some goals now, and I suppose looking towards the end of my career, I am now starting to think about those goals and what I want to achieve outside of the gym as well. So really excited to actually be where I am now.
Do you as you just said a minute ago, like the next generation then come up and naturally kind of push you guys out of the picture? Do you ever feel any sense of pressure that you're getting pushed out, or do you feel part of a team and whatever's best for that team, if that person's better than you feel comfortable with moving aside and letting them take over? Or like Cristiano Ronaldo, he never kind of wants to give up. He wants to be the top goal scorer forever. Can you see yourself being that more Cristiano Ronaldo figure where you want to just keep going as long as you can? Or do you see the best for Team GB in the youth generation?
For me, I always see the best in the team. It's, you know, there's times where I've made finals and I've pulled out to let another teammate go in, you know, because I feel like, for example, I'll take Junior European Championships, I made a Pommels finals, and I knew that we had a guy that was much better than me on Pommels, and I was like, well, actually, he was reserved, so if I pulled out, he would have gone in. But for me, I would have got maybe a little bit of benefit out of it, but actually, my apparatus, my focuses were like floor, vault, the all-round, things like that. So I was like, you know, I'd happily step aside, and I did. I stepped aside, and he went in, and for me, it was about giving him an opportunity and experience. And I'm a massive team player. If I think that someone else deserves to be in the team over other than me, then 100% they
Yeah.
deserve it. And if that's what's going to be best for the team to go get a medal and do really well, then absolutely, I don't mind. I'll always give it my best. I'll always work really hard, but at the end of the day, we can only do what we can do.
Yeah.
And if I'm getting beat on paper, then then clearly I'm not supposed to be in the team. So
yeah, it's a great way to think. And if we had a lot more people like that, then Team GB would probably do better. If there was people more like you that were happy to sort of move aside when their time was finished. So we've talked a lot at the minute about sort of physical injuries and a lot of stuff that your body has gone through. So I wanted to ask you, what sort of impact does being a professional gymnast have on your mental health? And your body's taken a battering over the years. Is that the same as your mind? Do you feel like you've had to go through a battle with your mind at the same time as your body?
Yeah, I think gymnastics is I know it's very physical, but it's actually very, very mental as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the time, the mind actually quits on you before the body does.
Mm-hmm.
For me, myself, I think my biggest mental battles and challenges of when I've been injured, not so, when I'm fine, the body's healthy, everything's going well, I'm normally doing good. But when I'm in pain or when I'm struggling with an injury that's ongoing, that's when I then struggle mentally massively. Which is okay. I accept that. I understand that, and I've kind of like. I'm at a point now where I've acknowledged that I know when I'm in pain, mentally. Normally, I'm a bit more negative in a way. I'm a bit more. What's the word? I get frustrated and irritated a lot quicker. But we have a very good support system in place where if you need help or guidance, then that can be offered to you.
So what does that look like in terms of being a professional gymnast? If you was having a really down day, or you felt like you were suffering with anxiety or depression, or if you was thinking like quite horrible suicidal thoughts and stuff, is there a person an assigned person to go to, or is there an organisation, or who would you turn to?
So for us, we normally speak to like our doctor.
Okay.
And then the doctor can refer us to who he thinks we'd need to speak to. I mean, he has access to a load of people, so it depends on what sort of, how you're feeling. What are your thoughts? What are your problems that you're dealing with? And with that, it could be, for example, anxiety. You might go see this specialist for anxiety, but if it's a mental block, you might see a sports psychologist, or you have different options. You have different things available depending on kind of what you need.
Yeah.
Which is really good, I think, because not everyone's going to have the same things. Not everyone's going to have the same issues or same mental problems. And for me, sometimes I've had to speak to a sports psychologist where I've had a mental block. I've done a skill thousands of times, and then all of a sudden, prime example, Olympic Games, I'm probably one of the better vaulters in the team. I do a triple twist and I just lost it. I was losing myself in the air. I kept like opening out. I didn't know where I was, but I'd done this skill. I've done this vault so many times, and it was actually then I spoke to a sports psychologist, helped me understand why I'm having a mental block, things like that.
Yeah.
But then also to help you, I've spoken to psychologists and people about when I felt really down, when I felt really low, and there's loads of times where I felt like that, and there's times where I've jotted it down in a notebook.
Yeah.
I think something that I want to, touch in when I come to write a book is I've actually got notes of how I felt in that moment and in that current time, and I remember one specific time I wrote down, I've just been selected to go to the Commonwealth Games, yet I feel no motivation, I feel really unhappy, there were so many things I wrote down because I wanted it to be real, I wanted it to be true. but you know, we've got a great support team,
Yeah.
and all you need to do is speak up. And
Yeah.
again, I think that's the issue. Sometimes it feels scary to speak up because you don't want to seem like you're weak or vulnerable.
Yeah.
But actually, then when you have those conversations with those right people, you actually feel better. And that's something that's helped me massively, is just speaking.
Yeah, thank you for being so honest about that. And something else I wanted to touch on was like, do you feel like your place in the team can be jeopardized by having bad mental health? So, you know, for example, if you spoke to your coach and you said, my shoulder's still not in a great place, you know that you would be dropped further down the list because you're not physically at your best, you know? So if you wasn't mentally at your best, do you feel like you could go to your coach and talk to him without being judged? And do you feel like that would push you down the pecking order? Or do you feel like that you're comfortable enough talking about how you feel mentally that it wouldn't drop you down in that list?
I'm 100% comfortable.
Okay.
I could go to them, speak to them. The only time would ever be kind of considered to be put out of the team is if we had an injury that was going to cause concern to our health.
Okay.
For example, if I had, I don't know, if say for example I just broken my foot, right? And we had the same thing, because I can talk about this because he's my friend, Joe Fraser. They were like, Joe, we really don't want you to do floor and vault. You know, you've got a broken bone in your foot. Like, you can't do this. But on the other hand, he's like, no, I'm fine. It's, you know, they then pulled him out of doing floor and vault, but that's more for his own well-being and safety. So there's good reasons for it. And that's the only reason why you would be pulled out, is actually like, it's like, if it's me, like, gee, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Like, for example, now rings, I don't do rings because my shoulders actually, gee, we know your shoulders, you've had a bad history with your shoulders. Yeah. You're not going to be needed on rings, so don't really worry about doing that. I think we're all old enough and mature enough now, and we have these conversations. We sit down, we have conversations, and we talk about it openly. What would be best and what they recommend and what we think. So yeah, I think in terms of, like, you know, having, even if you've got any sort of mental health problems, if you want them to know, they'll know, but it's kept very, you know, between us, the doctor and the psychologist, it's kept very quiet, unless you want other people to know. Yeah. I think sometimes people prefer to keep it quiet.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think people would prefer to keep that quiet? Do you think that is in case of losing a position in that team, or do you think that's just for their own vulnerability?
I think it's for their own vulnerability. I think it's, you know, pride.
Yeah.
A little bit of, maybe, I don't know. You don't want to. I suppose I can talk for me, but I suppose if you talk about it openly, sometimes you might feel a little bit, you know, judged or whatever. And whereas I'm at a stage now where I'm not bothered. I can talk. I can sit here now and talk openly about it, because I tend to just be real. Like, it's, you know, I've dealt with it. I've gone through it. But I think yeah, people don't want to be seen. He's got this, or he's feeling like that.
Yeah.
I think it is it's a natural human reaction. I don't know.
Of course. Especially for guys as well. A lot of guys don't really talk, and I think I've said to you before, like, I cut a lot of professional footballers and stuff, and their sport is very masculine and very kind of, you can't show any weakness, and having mental health problems is, unfortunately, from a lot of the footballers that I've spoke to, if you show that you have a mental weakness, it's a bit of a target and something that, if you went into training one day and you was a bit anxious or a bit depressed, if you say, I'm really, really nervous about playing this cup final, you're probably not going to get picked. So a lot of these footballers tend to not show any weaknesses, and I do feel like we need a bit more of that, of them sort of role models to come out and, like yourself, perfect example, to come out and say, I've spoke to psychiatrists, I've spoke to counsellors, I've spoke to people, and when my performance isn't great, I then look to my mind, and rather than, yeah, my body's 100% fit and healthy and ready to go, but if my mind's not there, I'm never going to be able to get to the top.
Yeah.
And I think if that can be taken outside of sport, think how much happier that would make people and how much more successful that would make young boys growing up, where they feel like they can actually talk to people. Like obviously yourself, you've got younger brothers, and they must see you and see you as an inspiration and stuff. So have you ever had that chat with your brothers about mental health and stuff like that?
I wouldn't really say, well, I suppose like little bits here and there, but it's more conversations about, focus on yourself, invest in yourself as well, and be grateful. Like one thing I've learned to do massively over the past year is really just be grateful, appreciate everything that I've got, every opportunity that I've had, the roof over my head, just be like that. And that's just advice I pass on, because I think sometimes one thing I don't want, especially for my brothers and my family, is just to be like, just get carried away and never actually appreciate what they actually have got. And I think it's easier for me to explain and understand that, because the saying is, you don't know what you've got until it's gone.
Yeah.
There's been times where in the gym, I'm like, oh, I hate gymnastics. Oh, I just want to go home. But then when I'm sat there in a sling in a chair and I can't do it, I'm like, oh, I wish I could do gymnastics. So it's just reflecting, be grateful, and that's one message I pass on, because that's it. There's some people out there that would absolutely love to have what you've got. And in terms of mental health, it's like, if they need anything, I'm always here. Sometimes my brother has relationship issues, so I'm on the phone to him for that, which is, I think everyone goes through at some point in their life. Course. But the same thing, same advice. It's like, look, I'm going to be honest with you because you're my brother. I just want you to be happy. Yeah. Whatever makes you happy, do that. You know, you got to focus on that. And that's my biggest advice, is do what makes you happy. There's no point being in a relationship or going to a job or doing anything like that if you literally just go in there for a paycheck and you're unhappy. Yeah, that's true. For me, gymnastics, although it's a sport, it's more than a job, it's more than a hobby, it's my life. It's your passion, yeah. It's my passion, yeah, but then because of that, it is a job. Yeah. It is a job, but it's also my passion. Yeah. So, it's a win-win. Yeah. How old was you when you first started? The first time you stepped in a gym, how old was you? I think I was around 2 years old. My parents first took me into a gym. It's like parent and toddler session, something like that. And then at 3 years old, you can start preschool. Okay. Which is, got a bit more structure to the classes, things like that. And just from there, I just enjoyed it. I just loved it. Don't know what it was. It was, I think, as you can imagine, 3 years old, you still pretty much don't really know what's going on. Yeah. You can just about run and jump. I remember just jumping on the trampoline, hanging myself from the rings. And I remember one session I went in, I was maybe 4 at this point. I was hanging myself on the rings, pulled myself over, and then that's when people were like, this guy's got some talent. So did your mum and dad, when you was younger, do you think your mum and dad pushed you into gymnastics because they wanted you to be a gymnast, or do you think it was just they took you to a class because it was fun and they knew you'd enjoy it, and it was just a natural thing that just happened? So I think my mum and dad, I think they attended like adult gym class, and they were like, oh, this is, they'd never done any gymnastics in their life. Because your mum and dad compete as well, right, when they was younger? Yeah, so my mum and dad met and they compete together as ballroom dancers, Latin dancers, things like that. So they were dancers. They then went on, so my dad went on to boxing, kickboxing, Thai boxing. My mum went on to judo and kickboxing. Actually competed for GB, judo. And then from that point, so they're both really sporty. They've been together. They're doing things together, sports and stuff. I think they had the opportunity to go to an adult class in gymnastics, and they're like, well, this is cool. I've never seen a gymnastics gym before, and like jumping on a trampoline, having access to a massive foam pit. And obviously when they had me, they decided to take me. And I don't think it was never like, it was never a, we want him to be a gymnast.
Yeah.
It was, you just take your child to a class, and before you know it, they enjoy that, so we'll take them again. Okay, they enjoyed it, and when you notice that your child's enjoying something, you continue to kind of take them and see where things go. And because I was doing loads of sports, I mean, from the age of 7 up until the age of 7, I was doing gymnastics, I was doing boxing, I was doing football, so I was doing everything.
Yeah, just trying a bit of everything.
It wasn't like, you must be a gymnast.
Yeah.
And it was really like, I think, giving me the opportunity to see what I enjoyed, see what I liked, and, boxing as well. Obviously, my dad being a boxing coach at that point, and a boxer, he had me and my brother in the gym, we was doing bits and bobs, but I always found gymnastics interesting. The idea of being able to do a backflip was like, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
When I looked towards some of the older guys that were in squads at that point, and I was like, well, they're walking on their hands, look at them. I remember like pointing to my dad, like, look, they're walking on their hands, like, that's so crazy. Yeah. And I remember I just wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to do a backflip and all that stuff. And I had to get to a point where I had to choose. Yeah. Gymnastics, boxing, or football. You can't do all three. You've got to focus on one. Yeah. So I decided gymnastics, and obviously that's where it just continued. Yeah.
And how do you think you would feel like, imagine you walking in the gym as a young kid now, 4 years old, and you see yourself at this age, world number one, that's got to give you some sense of pride and achievement, like you was looking at them people thinking, that's incredible, now you are that person. So I think, like you were saying earlier, sometimes it is nice to reflect and look back on what you have actually achieved. Like, you've come from walking in the gym and doing it for fun to being, there's no one better than you at what you do. So it must be absolutely incredible to have that feeling. And do you ever go into gyms now and see young kids and think, that was me? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And, I do club visits. I do, appearances where I go into clubs and I'll see young kids, or even the club that I train at, the kids around me training, they come up to me like, Giarnni. Mm-hmm. And they're like, obviously I'm training around these guys. I'm doing all my stuff, all this high level stuff around, these young kids that are training. And, some of them have goals of going to the Olympics and being medalists and stuff. And for me, it's that same thing. I want to try and inspire them how I was inspired. And that's all I want to do. I want to try and just, when I'm in the gym, obviously I'm trying to focus to get my work done, but actually I know for well that, those kids are watching me. They're watching, yeah. When they're not having their goes, they're watching, or, they're coming up to me and they ask me questions and things like that. And I'm always there, because all I want to do is inspire them. And if that means, just going out of my way just to have that extra conversation, or going up to someone, just be like, oh, have you ever tried it like this? Or maybe try doing it like this way. Just giving a little bit of advice. If that helps one person, then, then I've done a good job.
So do you feel like you've had any pressure put on you at any point in your career, either from parents or from coaches or from yourself? Have you ever had any moments where you feel like you're doing it for somebody, or is it all just for you?
I think I'm the one that's always put the most pressure on me. Mm-hmm. I think because, obviously we all have our expectations when you know what you're capable of, and when you know that you have the potential to achieve, really good results. There is, there never is, but there is a little bit of pressure coming from, coaches, team, obviously family want you to do well. I think the biggest one is myself. I don't think about the other sort of pressures. I think about the pressure I put on myself, and sometimes that's where it's caused me problems, because I know I'm capable of something, yet I put that much pressure on myself to get there or to do it. I've always failed. Yeah. I've always made a mistake. I've always fallen, and that led all the way up until the Olympics. Same thing at the Olympics. I was like, I've made the Olympics. You know, I'm here now. I'm part of this team. I know I'm capable of making a final. I know I'm capable of doing well. But I put that pressure on myself. No one else put that pressure on me. Everyone else was like, you know, the coaches, gee, you're at the Olympic Games, enjoy it, you know, take everything in. But for me, I was like, I'm at the Olympic Games.
Yeah. This is real.
Like this, walking out, I'm like, oh, there's rings everywhere. It's happening.
Yeah. Talking of Olympic Games, whilst I was cutting your hair, you told me the Olympics in Paris is only next year. What is it, about 13 months away, 14 months away?
Yeah.
How ready are you for Paris next year?
Nowhere near ready at the minute.
Okay. And do you feel comfortable with not being ready at the minute, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think you got to take it in like, for me, I work in like milestones. So I'm like, okay, right now I'm here. I am me. I'm where I am. Not ready, not fit. And that's okay, because I've just, you know, I had a surgery on my shoulder in December. I had a surgery on my shoulder in January. And we're now in May, end of May. So that was not that long ago.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm still just taking it bit by bit.
Yeah, perfect.
And I think, okay, yeah, if I was 100% fit now, I've got to maintain that for a whole year.
Yeah.
I've got to maintain that level. At least this way, it gives me things to aim for, goals to set, so I can be like, right, by summer, by August, by September, I want to be here.
Yeah.
But then, hopefully, I get to that point, and that point's a starting base, and then by Christmas, I want to be fit, fully fit. So then it gives me another 6 months to then get to be fit, get to where I want to be. And it's basically just doing it by goals, step by step, you know, rather than going one big jump to 100% fit. It's like, okay, what's the first step? Okay, first step is getting in the gym. Second step is, you know, getting my skills back. Third step is getting fit. And like, you just do it like that. And for me, I think that works better, because I've constantly just got goals and targets. When you take away goals from me, when you take away targets and I've got nothing, you know, I've just had 6 months off. I've had 2 surgeries, I had 6 months off. I had no goals, I had no targets, I lost all my routine. I just become so lazy. I become the complete opposite of what I normally am. And that's one thing that really pushed me to get back in the gym. I was like, okay, I need this.
Yeah.
It gives me structure, it gives me discipline, it gives me routine. And I think all those things are so important in life. So
I find it insane how you constantly go from the ground up. It feels like your journey isn't just this. And as we were discussing earlier, you were saying about potentially documenting your journey, which I think is an incredible idea, because people just see you on your Instagram, for example, standing there, number one, with your gold medal. Say you win next year, which I'm pretty confident you're going to win, but they're going to see, oh, he's just won this medal. But what they've not seen is you've not been world champ to Olympic gold medalist. You haven't just remained here, have you? You've gone from world champ to rock bottom, had all these surgeries, and there's no one else that's going to get you back up there apart from yourself. And it's admirable to see someone who's willing to keep going and to acknowledge that life's not just this one level thing. It's admirable to see that you understand that you have to go up. When you get your ups, you have to then go down, and then you have to go up. You can't maintain that level of greatness every single time, you know, like every month. Like, I can imagine, like, right now, you're not the person who won that world gold medal.
No.
You're in a different position now, but you understand that, and you've gone from the top all the way down again, and now you know you can get yourself back up there. So it's super admirable to see that you understand that process as well. And I guess that's what it takes to be number one, is people that understand that you can't remain top all the time.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like you say, you know, you need it. I think being on top. I think there's a saying like, the wolf on the top of the hill is not as hungry as the wolf climbing the hill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you need to be climbing. You need to be chasing, because if you're just settled and you're content, you know, if I had to retire today, I'd be so happy with what I've achieved in my career. However, you know, kind of becoming world champion, I'm up here, cloud 9 on top of the world, but I can't stay there.
Yeah.
I need to come back down. And actually, now for me, after having them surgeries, I do feel like I'm starting from the ground up again.
Yeah.
But it's great because now my goal is the top of the mountain. I've got to start climbing, and that's what I'm doing. Each month, I'm trying to just climb a little higher, do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn. You learn so much from being at the bottom. Learn so much more from being. I've learned way much more from being rock bottom than I have on top.
Yeah.
Way much more about myself, about people close to me, about sport, life, everything. And
I guess you see who's there for you as well. Like, I'm guessing everyone wanted to be your mate when you was in the Olympics. Everyone you've ever known probably dropping into your DMs when you were world number 1, everyone congratulating you. But through these months where you're not doing anything necessarily, I can imagine it's quite a quiet kind of time for you, that there's not as many people reaching out. You don't feel like, I guess you don't feel yourself in that time. How does that affect you coming back down to reality?
For me, I'm okay with it because I like to keep my circle really small anyways. The people that are closest to me are the people that are on this journey with me. And everyone else, I'm just, they're just here and there.
Yeah.
And again, it's like with social media, I'm not really bothered about social media. I don't post a lot. And like you say, when you win, you've got everyone like, when I become world champion, I think my post got like 10,000 likes.
That's insane.
And now like I'll just do a normal post, somebody you get like 1,000.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered. I'm not interested in getting all the likes or the attention, things like that. And sometimes my manager, he's like, gee, come on, you need to start posting a bit more. But honestly, I think
you know what you want.
Yeah, I think social media. A lot of the time, people always. I just feel like sometimes it can be quite fake.
Yeah.
And I like to just try and stay as real as I can. Just put out stuff that's just real and touching on like doing the whole documentary. Like something that I want to start because I actually want to show people what it's like, what we go through, the bad days, the rough days, when I'm feeling like absolute rubbish. But then also the good days, the highs, just everything. That's something that I'd love to be able to share with the people because actually most people just see, oh, he's won, he's done really well. But they don't see what it actually took to get to that point.
Yeah.
They don't see World Championships. I didn't hit one routine before the competition.
Really?
Land on my face, land on my face, land on my face, all the time. Yeah, I get there, I've hit 3 out of 3 and I'm absolutely, what's happened? But I reckon if everyone's seen how I was training before that World Championships, they'd be like, this guy's not even going to make a final.
Really?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And I'd love for people just to be able to see the journey.
And see your nerves in the hotel room the night before. Like, because when you go out, I've seen you when you compete and stuff, you're a very confident person. You hold yourself confidently, but there's another side to you that people don't see. And the same with everybody. Before a Champions League final, I'm sure these players are not as confident as they are on the pitch. They're probably with their families and feeling a bit nervous and stuff. So I think it'd be an incredible idea to document that and highlight that. A question I was going to ask you as well is, what do you think has been your biggest risk to date? And that could be your personal life or your career. The biggest risk you've taken.
Biggest risk? That's a good question.
Got you thinking?
That's a really good question. You know what? I've never actually thought about what my biggest risk is.
Because I don't know, when I talk to you about all these things, like, you do so much, and for me, in my head, I'm thinking, he's such a risk taker. Like, you've moved to Manchester, for example.
Yeah.
You've done all these things. You've had the surgery, and then that's a risk, having surgery. You've told me before that sometimes it might mean you might never compete again, for example, or even going back into it, that your shoulders, for example, have a certain amount of time left in them. So for us normal people, you're risking your body, like getting back on like on them. Do you know what I mean? On their hoops and
Yeah.
stuff. So like,
I think like I don't really, and it's weird. Like now you say that, yeah, you know, probably what I do, I take a lot of risk, but I don't see it as risk. For me, I see it as opportunity, and you know, like the move to Manchester, yeah, it's a massive risk, but it's a massive opportunity also. You know, surgeries on my shoulders, well, you know, they're already torn, so for me, it's a risk that I might not get back, but actually, it's a risk that with the current way they are, I was not going to be able to continue anyway. So I just see these things. I try and look at them as opportunities, and I think in terms of risk, I don't know, because I never really look at it as a risk.
That's interesting that you don't see them as risks.
Because of course, everything has a risk with it. You know, there's a risk that this could go wrong. There's a risk that, you know, I might not like it here, or I might not perform well because of this. But it's weird because I actually never look at it as risks.
Yeah, well, that just shows how positive your mindset actually is. The fact that I've asked that and it kind of left you speechless for a good 15 seconds. Like, have I taken any risks? Whereas actually, to the viewers and stuff, they've just heard you talk about all this crazy stuff you've done, and you'd have had to have risked something in your life to get where you are, but you don't see that as a risk. It's pretty incredible.
I think like a massive thing is constantly, you know, if you stay within the comfort zone, you're not going to achieve anything. You know, to achieve great things, you have to go outside your comfort zone. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to do things that you don't want to do, and that's what I do. Yeah. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, there's times in the gym where they're like, you need to do this skill, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, and I want to stay in my comfort zone. But actually, with a bit of, you know, persuading, and I've got a great team around me, but actually, all the great things that have happened to me have happened because I've taken risk, and I've gone outside of my comfort zone. Because that floor routine at the World Championships, I added in the triple double, which is the 3 times twisting while doing a double backflip, and I was landing on my face every time, and they were like, "Gee, if you don't land it in the podium training," and basically podium training is where you get to go out into the actual arena before, like 2 days before the comp, you just get to feel the arena, feel the competition, like feel the equipment. They said if you don't land it there, then it's you know, coming out your routine. But for me, it was a risk because I hadn't landed any. So I was like, I knew I needed to do this today, and I knew that's what I needed to make that floor final. Yeah,
you had to risk it.
Was I comfortable doing it? Absolutely not. Like I was like, oh my. Before every training session, I was like, please, like, please land on your feet today. Please land on your feet today. Not in a bad way, but just in a like a, you know, I'm going out of my comfort zone here. And honestly, that's really what it is. You've got to take risks. You've got to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Make the what is it? It's like make the uncomfortable the comfortable. Yeah. And that's where, like, you know, that's where you'll see the results. That's where you see great things happen. So
yeah, I was actually just talking to Joe, our beautiful cameraman, before we started recording actually, and saying that you're one of the only people I know that is just like a one-man quote machine. You just come out with these incredible quotes, and there was a quote I heard the other day that I've basically lived by for years, and I think it was actually by David Bowie, and it's he sees it as like to progress and be happy and move forward, and you should never feel your feet on the ground. You should always, if you're like walking into water, you should always be on your tiptoes. You should be just about coping and just about, like you said, if you mess that routine up, you could fall flat on your face. So you should always be just out of your comfort zone. When you're standing on your feet and you feel comfortable, you're never going to progress and go where you need to go. And a lot of successful people that I know and I've cut their hair, including the footballers and the dancers and things like that, they've taken these risks and gone out of their comfort zone, and there's moves, or there's like dance moves, or there's things for you, for example, that they think, I don't know if I'm going to land this, but if I do, it's going to be incredible and I'm probably going to win. But no one else is going to take that risk. If I do, that's what's going to push me on to the next level. And I think that's what sets people like yourself and all these other incredible professionals apart from other people, is that you take these risks. So yeah, going back to what I said earlier, it's incredible that you didn't see nothing as a risk, and now we've actually spoke about it. We've kind of gone full circle, and the reason you kind of are where you are is because you're taking the risks that almost no one else wants to take. So yeah, I've even learnt something from going through that as well. So the next question I was going to say is, who would you say is your biggest inspiration? So not necessarily just in gym or in your work life, but could be personal life, could be a celebrity or a family member.
I think for me, my biggest inspiration will always be my parents, my family. My mum and dad, they had their own house. Not too long left on their mortgage, and they decided that for me, I was at a point where my career had to progress. My coach had moved on, and he was moving up to Dartford, and if I wanted to continue progressing, I needed to stay with him. And I mean, there was other coaches in the area, but again, that would have required at least an hour travel, if not more. So if they decided, actually, okay, we're going to sell our house, move up to London, move up to, I think we first moved up to Gravesend.
Okay.
Obviously not knowing any areas around here, we didn't know, any sort of areas, so we first moved to Gravesend. But the difference in where we lived, and this being classes, practically London, I know it's not central, but it was so expensive. They couldn't afford a house, couldn't get a mortgage. Even with like the type of deposit they had and stuff, it was just not going to happen. So my parents sold their house for me to be able to pursue my career and become the person I am today.
Yeah, that's incredible.
For me, that is that's inspirational.
Yeah.
And because they didn't have to sell their house. They could have stayed in their nice house, probably paid off their mortgage by now, been around their family. Obviously, all my family's down there still, but they didn't. They took a risk, and that risk is now paid off.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think as well, it's timing. Sometimes you take risks, but actually, you don't see the reward straight away. Some people want to take risks and hope that they see that reward straight away. They want that quick reward. But actually, this whole thing has been a process.
Yeah.
And it's been a process, since I think we first moved up in 2012, and we're now in 2023. So it's 11 years that we've been here.
And did you feel a bit of pressure from that? So we were talking earlier about pressure, as you just explained then, that your parents kind of sold up their house, moved down this area, pretty much solely sort of for your future. Did you feel then like, I have to go on and do this for them? Or did you see it as was you in it as a family and you was all coming together and you were going to do this together? It wasn't for G, it was for for all of you.
Yeah, it was as a family.
Yeah.
Because at the time my other brother trained, he was in the GB team as well, Emilio, obviously you cut his hair as well. Yeah. He was actually in a GB team for gymnastics. So there was two of us. My other brother Carlos, he was a gymnast, but he went into boxing, kickboxing at this point. So it wasn't really for him, he was leaving his friends behind. Rico at that stage was too young to know any different. And, so it was for me and Emilio. But I'd say massively me. And yeah, I think I never felt pressured by it. I never felt like, I must do this because they've done that for me. I feel like I owe them something. Yeah. It's more, they've done this for me to help me become the best version of myself, the best athlete that I can be.
And that's what parents are for.
And they were very supportive, and they're very, they've also disciplined me very well. So there were times, I think more so when I felt like giving up, that's when I felt a bit like, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. But then actually I'm thinking like, did my mum and dad really want to sell their house? Probably not. Do I want to do gym? Probably not, but I know I can if I just push through.
Yeah.
And it was always, I think for me, it was always, I just wanted to give them what they deserve. Yeah. And I wanted to make them proud. And I knew whatever I'd done anyways, I'd always make them proud. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I was open with them with conversations like, I'm not enjoying this. I don't want to do it anymore. And they're like, look, if you're not happy, then just call it a day. Yeah. There's no point doing it if you're not enjoying it. if you're not happy, you're not going to give 100%. If you're not giving 100%, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So yeah, I never felt like pressure, like, oh my God, I must do this for them. It was more like I wanted to. It wasn't pressure. It was more like, you know, I want to fulfill my dreams, not just for me but for them as well. And that's why, especially with all the success I've had over the last few years, I suppose the injury times have been hard, but actually the success I've had, especially last year, was just like, it was all worth it.
Yeah.
It's been 11 years since we made that move, and it's taken 11 years to, you know,
to get where you want to be.
I mean, I don't want to say pay off because you know, it's not, but it's actually to fulfill my absolute dream and become a world champion.
Yeah.
And that's what it took. And yeah, and now for me, I'm in a place where I want them to be happy.
Yeah.
It's about, okay, mum, dad, you've done what's best for me. What's best for you now? Like, what's going to make you happy?
Yeah.
So they're my biggest inspirations, and they always will. You know, they've been there through it all, through every little minute of it. So, and sometimes they don't understand. Sometimes they do understand. You know, their parents are always going to want you to be the best. They're always going to push you to be better than you was yesterday.
100%.
But I suppose again, that's what's made me me. So
yeah, 100%. So for this segment of the podcast, what I wanted to do was something a little bit different. So rather than me asking you a question, I've put the question out to my followers on Instagram to ask you a question, and it could be anything, anything at all. And the most common question that I got asked to ask a professional Olympic athlete is, how do you earn money? Very personal, but that's what the people want to hear.
So for us as athletes that are funded, we're on an APA, which is like an award basically. We are funded by the National Lottery, so shout out National Lottery if you're watching. So yeah, you know, everyone that takes part in the National Lottery, plays in the National Lottery, obviously, you know, they contribute to helping sports and fund athletes.
Amazing.
And it's done on an award system. So the lower the level, you know, you'll have a criteria, and you have to hit certain criteria to like move up. But yeah, I mean, we're funded by the National Lottery. But other than that, it's whether we get sponsorship deals, whether we get, you know, any sort of promotional stuff to do like that. So that then comes down to us and our managers to go find work, go find things, opportunities that are going to bring us more money, because we don't have a job and we don't really have time for a job either. Because and I was talking to this about with my friends, saying, imagine if we had to have a job. Yeah. Like we just
doing backflips down the aisles of Asda.
If we was just like, we just worked a job and was like, sorry, we're going to be away this week. This week. We're going to be away for 3 weeks here. Yeah. We're going to be away for another week here. They'll be like, no, we're not having you here. Why would we want you? So like we can't. We have to be full time. We have to be dedicated to the sport, and that's what we do. So.
And what would you do? Do you think if you wasn't a gymnast?
If I wasn't.
What would be your normal job?
If I wasn't now, or if I wasn't like years ago, say. Because if I wasn't now, I'd know.
Yeah. Kinda. Well, both. What? So. Say you was younger, 16-year-old, what would you be, do you think? What would you be happy doing?
16-year-old. I would have probably gone down like personal training route.
Okay.
Because I do love fitness, weights, things like that. And I want to help people, like people that want to, say, get into shape, but actually are... maybe they feel a bit intimidated by going to a gym because they don't really know what they're doing, or there's people there that are like massive and they feel intimidated, to help those people, because they want to make a change, but some people actually do generally feel intimidated by gyms. So that's that would be then, 16 years old. I'd done my level 2 fitness back then. Still not done my personal trainer yet, but we'll get there. But now I think, if I was to finish now, I'd want to focus on setting up a business, and also a business that will also help out my mum. So I'd want to open up a tanning salon, have like some rooms in it. My mum does like obviously beauty, all that stuff, eyelashes, things like that. Just have a nice space for her to be able to do her stuff, and manage and run the shop. and yeah, well, I don't know what else. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But
yeah, nice.
I do want to own a business. I do want to do stuff.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
So to wrap it all up, it's August next year. The Olympics is finished. You've finished where you finished, gold medal, silver medal, bronze. What next after that point? What does the future hold for you after that Olympics next year?
I think just going on a really long holiday.
Yeah.
And
well, I know you as well, and you don't really drink much, do you? You don't really eat bad and stuff as well. So would there be a big pig out at like Nando's or something? Loads of beers or?
Well, I'll be honest. Recently, I've had some time off, and like you say, I'm one to not really drink alcohol. I'm not one to really eat bad, but in this past 6 months, I've enjoyed just on a weekend when I have a family barbecue, I'll enjoy a nice beer. Well, I wouldn't normally do that.
Yeah.
So I think actually enjoy. Paris is done. Whatever happens, the results and whatever comes after that, whether there's media, whether there's work, whatever. But have a nice holiday with the family. Enjoy it. Enjoy not just creating memories and being real. I think as athletes, sometimes we can be judged. Oh, you're not supposed to drink that. You're not supposed to eat that. Are you allowed that?
Yeah.
But actually just be a real human being with my family, living life and just enjoying the moment. Like, just go somewhere nice and hot and just do experiences. I think that's what we did after the World Championships, and it was so incredible.
Yeah.
To do all that stuff.
Just be a normal human.
And just be a normal human being with no pressures, no worries about what I have to eat and drink, what time I have to go to bed and wake up. Just enjoy a nice holiday with my family and just be a real human being.
Just enjoy the simple things in life.
Yeah, literally.
Sounds good to me, mate. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you again for letting me cut your hair as usual and being the first guest on No Bad Days podcast.
Thank you for having
Nice
me.
one,
And
brother.
it's a pleasure to be the first one.